Voilà, quand tu veux.
My name is Rosie Maldonne. As it goes, I don't like people to call me Rose or Rosie. Only my mother ever had the right
Attends,
to.
je t'arrête, excuse-moi.
Okay.
Il faut que tu dises le titre là, lundi. Et peut-être tu dis Queen of the HideOut. C'est le titre. Ou tu dis je suis Alexandra, machin, je vais vous lire Queen of the HideOut. Après tu dis lundi, et tu vois, le numéro, tout. Ok.
Mais tu verras que lundi, je vais pas faire. Bon, c'est pas grave.
C'est pas grave si tu fais pas
mais si on met 1 heure, moi et toi, pour faire 10 pages, c'est 2 heures de...
Non,
je sais pas.
Oui.
Ok. C'est bon, on est...
Oui, c'est bon.
C'est bon. Okay, so Queen of the HideOut. Monday, Codes and Stuff. Chapter 1. My name is Rosie Maldonne. As it goes, I don't like people to call me Rose or Rosie. Only my mother ever had the right to. It was her name too. Since her death 11 years ago of a stroke, I've never allowed another living person to call me Rose. Just Cree-Cree. I don't know how I ended up choosing Cree-Cree as a nickname. My psychoanalytical skills aren't all that hot, and I'll probably never get to the bottom of why and how I wound up wanting to be named after a cricket. I remember my mum took me to see Pinocchio at the theatre when I was little. I loved Jiminy Cricket. Maybe that has something to do with it. Plus, I'm always letting my conscience be my guide. That's just so me. Anyway, that morning everything started to go bunk. I awoke with a start from one of the worst nightmares ever. That was just so typical of me and my life. I snuggled down a little farther under the quilt and deeper into my gorgeously soft bed. When I say bed, I'm talking about my super class act day bed in the fit for royalty cabin of my brand spanking new and luxurious trailer. That's right, my home sweet home is a trailer, but thanks to a massive stroke of luck last year, I upgraded from my stinky old Caravalaire to a souped up mobile home, which was made to measure for some big gypsy mogul, but he never bothered to pick it up. It's called the Ambassador. It is the king of travel. I'm a girl with style these days. My rich buddy Gaston, he's loaded to the max, bought me the trailer as a gift. We, my 3 kids, the cat and I, were all feeling under the weather. It was sniffle central in our house. Not to mention it was freezing outside, and I had the school lunch bills hanging over my head. Both schools were asking me to settle up for my 3 kiddos. I called the 2 little ones, Lisa and Emma, the twins, because they were born almost on the same day 3 years ago. But only Lisa is actually mine. Emma is my friend Yasmina's daughter. Yasmina died in childbirth. It's hard to believe such things can still happen, but they do. Her father wasn't there the day Emma was born. I was the only one who registered her birth and took care of everything. I obviously tried not to get too attached, but when he finally showed up, the hopelessness of it all floored the guy. He hardly even looked at Emma and seemed more than pleased that I was taking care of her. So he left me in charge of her, and I couldn't be happier about the situation. I mean, what would my Lisa be without my Emma? They stick together like glue, that pair. They actually look nothing like twins. Emma has brown hair and dark skin, and Lisa is a spitting image of the White Witch from Narnia. She always looks sick to me, especially when she stands next to my coffee-coloured Emma. Then there's Sabrina, my eldest at 6. I had her with a guy from Cape Verde who I was madly in love with. So, that's who we all are. It can be a bit hard to follow who's who in my family, especially because over at our house, our trailer I should say, we often had Simon stay over too. He's my friend Vero's 6-year-old kid and Sabrina's BFF. Vero has been having more than her fair share of problems lately, and she's pretty fragile, especially since she went all wacko and had to spend some time in the psych ward. So I know his staying over really helps her out. I love having him over. Simon is a total sweetheart, apart from the fact that there's a whole bunch of stuff he won't eat. and he doesn't say much either. Anyway, being under the weather wasn't the best stitch to be in, seeing as I was also in the red, as always. Rosie Maldonne, aka Mademoiselle Holes in Her Pockets. Who on earth could be expected to bring up 3 little ones on welfare? Anyone in the same boat as me would be in just as big a mess. But knowing this never makes me feel any better. Being broke is pretty much the status quo around here, and I'm always bummed out about it. That's why the last thing I needed, especially that morning, was to be listening to miserable old pop songs by the Walker Brothers. Thanks, Mum. Who wants to hear 2 men warbling on and on about the sun not shining just because someone won't hook up with you? Not me. You see, my mother always finds a way to speak to me through my dreams, and she usually sends me songs, big hits from way back. She died when I was 16, but thanks to her weird and wonderful nocturnal communication system, we've never really been away from each other. The problem is, I sometimes have a hard job trying to decode her messages. She watches out for me. This means she usually tries to give me a heads up about what lies ahead that day. She forewarns me and lets me know if there's any danger coming up or, on the other end of the spectrum, if something good is about to happen. Her songs act as premonitions. It's up to me to work out all the whys and wherefores. Decrypting her messages can be hard work, though.
Attends.
To cough.
Bois un coup. On va peut-être sauter, oui, tu as raison, parce que tout ça, c'est que des explications. Il faudrait un truc d'action. Alors.
Je sais pas comment les gens ils font, les gens qui parlent à la radio.
Ouais. Tu as changé les noms. Il y a un Pascal. Qui c'est ce Pascal? Il y a un Pascal. Je n'ai jamais eu de Pascal, moi, dans l'histoire.
Il n'y a pas un Pascal. Moi, j'ai pas changé de nom.
Qui est ce Pascal?
Ah non, il y avait un Pascal. Non, mais...
Il y avait un Pascal.
Si, il y avait deux monsieur qui parlaient dans un bar.
Ah, peut-être.
Oui, et moi, j'ai pas inventé de Pascal, mais il faut pas me faire peur comme ça, Gisèle.
Ah, oui, ça me fait changer Pascal. Alors.
D'accord. On va changer les noms. Non.
Ah, peut-être le truc du FBI.
Il y a les deux monsieur, il y avait les deux dans le... Oui.
Là, t'as lu combien, là? On ne sait pas, hein? 6 pages, peut-être, tu as lu. Ah oui, on va faire ça. Oui, on va faire le truc. Alors, quand elle voit l'annonce. Alors. Là. My feet took me as far as the bus station. De temps en temps, regarde la caméra pour qu'on voit tes yeux, tes jolis yeux. Parce que sinon, tu as toujours les yeux baissés. Si tu y arrives, hein.
Okay. My feet took me as far as the bus station. Quite a sinister spot and windy as hell. It has a glass cover on it, so I was protected from the rain a little. 3 frozen people sat waiting for a bus. They were like giant ice pops. Who knew what polar destination they were headed for? At the back of the bus station there was a tiny waiting room, and inside a station employee sat at what looked like a giant fish tank. I guess it was supposed to be his office. A few greasy bits of paper were blowing around the corners of his tank. He was selling bus tickets. kept alive by a crappy little electric heater and smoking like an anxious father-to-be. I decided to wait inside this grimy room to get out of the cold for a while. A display board on the far side of the wall caught my eye. It was full of classifieds flapping in the draft. This was a light bulb moment for me. After all, if you're hunting for work, what better place to find it than the classifieds, right? Let's hear it for the classifieds. I bounded over and started to read. Within a few seconds, I began to get the idea. At least 3/4 of the ads were selling stuff. Any old crap. Cars, furniture, bikes, engines, spare parts, stamps, you name it. There were even some ads from people hoping to buy and sell gold. I had no clue people even did that. Imagine selling gold from a board at the bus station. I thought about it some. It made me think of my grandmother Ruth, who had given me a little gold chain with a heart pendant when I was a small girl. It was all worn around the edges these days. Actually, it had been a while since I'd last seen it. I must have tidied it away someplace, maybe at the back of a cupboard or in a makeup case or plastic bag. When I say tidied away, it's just a figure of speech. I didn't want to sell it, but maybe I could take it down to the pawn shop. The only other thing I could take down there was my old toaster, and I couldn't imagine getting much for that. If I couldn't do better on the job front, and I really had to, I'd have to hunt down my precious little necklace. The other ads were job offers, though not too many, or notices from people looking for work. All in all, there wasn't much there for me. I had to find some other options. I was just about to set off when, ta-da! A man sauntered into the super creepy, depressing and miserable little room, and the whole atmosphere changed. Ultra stylish, in his 40s, a bit of the George Clooney about him, with silver fox temples and an old-fashioned trench coat in a classy fabric like alpaca or some shit. I don't even know what alpaca is. I just know that it's the sort of thing that James Bond would wear if he was dressing up for a night on the tiles. These people have to wear something different, don't they? I mean, they don't want to go about the place in the same get-up as the rest of us mere mortals. It was as if he'd just stepped off a Hollywood film set. An A-lister, the ideal lover, everything I needed, everything I'd been lacking in my life, a touch of romance. My heart stopped. Yes, I know. It's not really my style, all that love stuff, but that's the exact reaction I had when I looked at him. Just like in the movies. Then it sped up like mad. My heart, that is. I had images running through my mind. Sunsets on the beach, sitting under the shade of the palm trees, gondolas in Venice, the whole deal. I forgot everything. Why was I there in the first place? I was on cloud 5 or whatever the number is. It's higher than 5. I was on cloud 12, right next to the sun. He made his way over to the notice board and pinned a piece of paper to it. Then he turned his back and darted off at a brisk pace. I watched him with my mouth hanging open like my jaw had dislocated. I stood there, staring for some time, lost. Things slowly started to come back into focus. The noises around me returned, voices, smells, the freezing temperature. I shook myself back to reality and moseyed over to take a peek at the notice he'd put up. Just as I'd hoped, it was a job offer. Seeking retired lady with references for a few hours of housework and companionship for an elderly gentleman. Bingo. This was my ad. Got it in one. There was no way I was letting anyone else get a hold of this number. I got out my pretty cell phone, typed in the number, went to borrow a pen off Smokey Fish Tank Man, and headed back to the ad to change a few numbers in the contact details. I know that was a teensy-weensy bit mean, but at least this way I was sure nobody else would call to ask about the job. I'd have zero competition on every level. As for references, I thought I'd give Gaston's name, and maybe Ismen's too, and together we'd see what we could make of it all. Chapter 7. I needed to find a quiet spot away from this goddamn rain. I made the call from my cell. But I didn't want to get my lovely little cricket friend all wet. He didn't like that. Sometimes I talk about my telephone like it's a real live thing, but I'm impressed with it. I found a covered passageway between two small streets. The rain was having more trouble getting into this place than elsewhere, even though it was bucketing down by this point. I shook out my umbrella and leaned back against the wall. My nose was running like crazy. I had to get all that crap out of there before I called this guy. When he picked up, his voice was soft, warm and attractive. Great. No voicemail this time. It was the real live him. Hello? I put on a nice voice, like the one the telephone operators in Mad Men use. Yes, hello, I'm calling about your ad. Which one? The one at the bus station. It mentioned you were hoping to employ someone to do some housework and keep an elderly person company. Yes, of course. Please excuse me. It's just that I put up a lot of ads online and I couldn't be sure which one you were talking about. I'd say you are a little too young. I did mention in my ad that I wanted someone of retirement age, didn't I? I don't think my father could cope with a youngster. We'd gotten straight to the point on this one. I really wasn't expecting him to be so matter-of-fact about the whole thing. Well, that's fine for you to say, I said, but you haven't even asked him. I am in fact kind of retired. It's just that instead of retirement coming after many years of hard slog, mine's come before. What's the big whoop? What's up with your dad anyway? Does he have Alzheimer's? No, not at all. He has all his faculties. He started to lose his sight a little, that's all. And we decided that it might be nice for him to enjoy some company. Someone to read to him. Do you read? Read? I love reading. I spend hours and hours down at the library. My place is too small to keep a whole load of books, though. That's what libraries are for, right? They don't make them just to stand there looking pretty. I could bring him tons of books, anything he wants. All you have to do is give me a list. I hoped he wouldn't ask me what I like to read. It's true I like to read, that wasn't a lie, but it's mostly comics and I mostly look at the pictures. I know this isn't what people call loving to read, but were we in a job interview or not? That's incredibly sweet of you, but he has his own library. He's erudite. Is that his name? I've never heard the name erudite before. Is it Greek? He snorted. This got me so mad. He made me feel like I'd said something stupid. At the same time, I suppose I'd rather make someone laugh than cry. Still, I was pissed that he seemed to be making fun of me in some way. Okay, I seem to be having some weird effect on you. Did I say something funny? No, not at all. I apologise. I have a frog in my throat, that's all. Well, get a load of this one. He has some balls. He really thinks I'm falling for that bull? So let's get back to what we were talking about. What are we doing then? I asked moodily. Please, listen, mademoiselle. I don't think you're the right person for the job. There's no point wasting any more precious time on this. I'm going to wait until I've heard back from a few more people. I've only just placed the ad after all. If nobody else gets back to me, and if you so wish, I'll call you. What do you say to that? Please note that whatever happens, all this will have to be finalised before tomorrow evening. I'm moving quickly on this one. This got me even more hopping mad. Listen up, monsieur, it's up to you. Like you said, there's no use in the two of us wasting our time if you've already decided you'd never hire me anyway. You do whatever the heck you want. You have my number. It'll be there on your little screen. Call me when you've made up your mind. If I'm still available, then maybe I'll consider your proposal. And I hung up on the snooty bastard. He clearly thought he was made of better stuff than me. If that was the guy I'd seen at the station, his voice certainly matched the vibe he'd been given off. Oh dear, I think that's what made him so charming. I have a thing for bastards. Okay.
Voilà.